This is Shin Chiho, a boy who accidentally unleashed his hidden magical powers while busy dreaming about girls. And luckily for him, it turns out that his magical abilities activate only through physical contact with them. Eventually, our boy learns that he actually grows stronger the more he touches, allowing him to unlock his true powers. But before he gained his magical powers, Shin was always bullied by girls throughout his entire 12 years at school for playing Roblox. Then one day, he finally broke out of his introvert shell, allowing him to muster up some courage to confess his love to the most popular girl at school. After all, there's only a couple weeks left before everyone heads out to university, so what could go wrong? Plus, he's been arming himself with listening to the Top G over and over, and he watched some videos on how to use some Riz, so he's ready to destroy. Unfortunately, just as he's about to confess, his moment to shine gets interrupted as his #1 bully decides to talk to her at the same time. But you know what? Our boy had it coming. Since his desired method of confessing was through using a letter, so in no way is he some kind of alpha male like Harambe. Nonetheless, with his bully appearing at the worst time, Shin tries to play hide and seek to avoid her, since he's absolutely terrified of her. But hiding underneath some desks in plain sight didn't go according to plan, so she ends up finding him in an instant. It's revealed that her name is Ju Hong, and she was able to torment the boy for 12 years. But she does him a favor this time, snatching his beta love letter from him right in front of everyone else. To make matters worse, she slaps him hard as he tries to take it back, but personally, I wouldn't let that slide. The fiery demon then insults our soy boy, calling him a dweeb, but his longtime crush, Lin, steps in. However, Hong ignores Lin since she's a menace from another mother, ready to expose our soy boy to the world. Luckily, Hong gets interrupted in the middle of trying to expose Shin by 200 classmen, as they barge in looking sus. And sus indeed they were, as they come charging through with eggs and flour in hand, with Hong as the intended target. Unfortunately, like an iron teammate, the girls totally whiff without AIM Labs practice, so Shin gets the brunt end of all things. It was at this moment he regretted his life decisions, since he could be playing Blocks Fruits or Front Lines right now instead. But at least his crush was worried about him, and he also about to triangulate some of her beauties at work, even if it were for just mere seconds. Now let's fast forward a couple months after high school graduation. With Shin being Asian, he gets unlucky, as there's no such thing as summer break, since he has to go study every day and every night no matter what. There's no escaping the inevitable, as there's always some Asian kid somewhere around the world better than you in what you're doing. But there is one good thing about staying in school, and that's when the girls all stay the same age but you grow older. In Shin's case, he gains the ability to see the prime ages or even the peak of beauty, so he says it's not too bad. Suddenly, out of nowhere, Shin receives another slap in the face after watching classmates accidentally drop some books. After looking up, he discovers it's actually Hong, and she only slapped him just to get his attention, while also telling the girls he's been looking at undies. Now imagine finally leaving high school and you end up having to spend another year with the person you hate the most, since that's probably Shin right now. On the bright side, Shin gets highly motivated to study at the sight of Hong, just so he could finally live freely, just like my farts. And so Shin trudges bravely on, hoping for one day to finally get a break in life. After finally making it home, Shin's day gets even worse, as no one will clean his toilet now, due to his mom leaving to attend the World Sorcerers Forum. So now he has to do even more work after a tiring day, but like a true single mom's kid, he tries his hardest to finish all his chores. As he cleans and tidies up the shrine, midnight hits, causing him to take a quick nap, but napping at this time ain't napping at all. And so he falls fast asleep, but then his body starts glowing with him still in front of the shrine. But it's revealed our boy is busy taking out his frustrations inside his own dreams, busy dreaming about sussy things, since he's unable to complete them in real life. Regardless, bro is the total opposite in his dreams, as he chads up spreading the banana trees to multiple girls, causing the mystical power to glow even more. It's almost as if he's getting stronger the more he destroys in his dream, so hopefully he stops being a soy boy. The next day, Shin heads back to school, but he starts complaining about having some kind of toothache. Then out of the corner of his eagle eye, he spots Lin and Hong heading towards the same prep school he's attending. It turns out that these two are actually best friends, and Lin is just here to accompany her friend as she was able to get into a top university. Nevertheless, Shin decides to just avoid all contact with the two, so he tries his hardest to walk on while staring at the ground. However, as he passes by Hong, a visible handprint appears on his face, almost looking like he just got freshly smacked. Then, out of nowhere, Lin calls Shin's name wanting to say hello, so she asks if he's heading straight to the prep center. We then discover that our boy is such a soy boy that he was actually trying to walk the opposite way the entire time just to avoid the two. And so he turns around to walk with them, due to Lin being so nice and welcoming. Unfortunately, he trips over a rock and proceeds to fall on top of his childhood crush. Under normal circumstances, this could totally be super romantic, but Hong with her honks is busy watching the entire ordeal unfold. Now, for the first time ever, he's almost able to succeed in getting as close to Lin as possible in real life, compared to his sussy dreams at night. With just his day beginning, his unfortunate luck leads to him getting Bruce Lee from the back, while Hong simultaneously calls him a super sussy baka. After finally getting thrown off Lin, Han decides to continue with a barrage of attacks, while screaming if he did it on purpose. As such, Shin braces for impact as he watches Hong wind up a massive hit, gunning straight for his face, just like the good old times. And so Hong whacks him with absolute force that could send her straight to the championships of the slap fighting series. But then, as she makes contact with his face, a bright flash begins to illuminate the entire area. Shin is then sent flying to the ground, while Hong starts to yell that she's feeling like she's getting shocked from somewhere. With Lin wide-eyed and Hong fixated to her hands, our boy decides to just sit there, wondering why he didn't feel anything from the impact of Hong's slap. A few moments later, Hong's twin dragons passively activates, so she starts wondering what the heck is happening to her, as she's never felt something so peculiar before. With the trio still absolutely confused, all Hong can do is wonder what kind of magic Shin is hiding in his backpack, hoping that this is just some kind of prank bro. But unfortunately for her, our boy still has no clue that he accidentally unleashed some mystical powers within him after taking a nap by his shrine at home. Thus, the girls decide to leave him alone, with Hong still absolutely furious at him, wondering what kind of trick he played on her. Eventually, it dawned on Shin that maybe he actually leveled up for always getting beat up so often, just like in those anime he watches often. Fast forward the next day, he goes back to school like nothing ever happened, since it's totally normal to just ignore everything. Meanwhile, Hong begins to look unusually mysterious, and she even turns down an invitation from her friends to go clubbing. Upon eavesdropping on Hong, Shin gets surprised till he starts praying that she actually gets sick, just so he could have some peaceful time to himself. But speak of the devil, she ends up texting him, ordering her to finish mopping and to afterwards buy her groceries using his own hard-earned money. Of course, our soy boy complies, but Shin notices something unusual, as she added a banana tree wrapper at the end of her usual list. After cleaning, he goes on with his duty to Hong, but he starts thinking to himself who the boyfriend could be, since he hasn't really seen her spending time with a boy. Regardless, he swiftly buys everything on her list and proceeds to meet her at a nearby playground, but today he plans to man up. He then hikes himself up on his way to find her, as he wants to put a stop to her always taking advantage of him, since now it's affecting his ability to buy riot points. However, after finally finding her, Shin discovers Hong hiding in a corner, totally out of her usual self. No matter though, as our boy finally becomes a man, telling her to actually pay him back this time since he needs to buy some skins. With Hong unresponsive, Shin continues on his rant, telling her that from now on he's done being her delivery boy. Suddenly, she interrupts him by jumping on him like a zombie, pinning him to the wall. After taking a closer look at her face, Shin finds out that she's sweating profusely, almost as if she can't hold something in. She then abruptly kisses him, totally catching Shin by surprise as she continues to latch onto him like a leech. Nonetheless, Hong reveals that ever since she made contact with him, she's had this weird feeling she couldn't get rid of, as she could only think of him the entire time. So now she's taken the matter into her own hands, as Hong cannot stop herself from ganking Shin over and over, almost as if her mind and body have been taken over. But then, just as Hong was about to escalate the event into overdrive, another bright flash illuminates the playground right after she accidentally hit him in the face. Shortly after, Hong's hand that made contact with Shin's face starts to glow, but she also feels even more attracted to Shin after the light explosion. With her hand now glowing, she starts making Shin attack her exposed Egyptian pyramids, as she wants the show to already get rolling. So for the first time ever, our boy gets to visit the realm of manhood, as she orders him to keep on attacking not just the pyramids, but also the catacombs below. Eventually, Shin watches on as the bully's pants go flying off into the sky, so he starts tearing up, unable to believe that this is actually happening. She then hands Shin a wrapper to cover up the battering ram he will be using to siege her catacombs, but he's dumbfounded on how to use it, as he's never even held a girl's hand before today. With Hong impatiently waiting for him, she starts insulting him and ends up snatching it from him, claiming that she'll do it for him as she can't wait any longer. Now realizing that this isn't just a prank bro, Shin freezes up as he's stunned in awe, due to him watching Hong putting her hair up aggressively, since that's when we know she's actually serious. A flashback then occurs back to when the two were still in high school, where we discover that Hong had a wide array of boys interested in her. However, she turned down everybody, including the most intimidating jocks from other schools, as her and Lin were on a different level as the undisputed queens. But now that same Hong has honks an open display for Shin as she tries her hardest to put on the defensive wrapper before Shin changes his soy boy mind. Eventually, she's able to properly apply the defensive wrapper on the battering ram, so she instantly mounts on the driver's seat, not wanting to let the golden opportunity pass. However, Hong finally realized why she had to retake math class, as her measurement skills were not up to par. This time, she misjudged the size of the ram, causing the catacombs to struggle. But a little bit of struggle can be instantly fixed with some grease, so naturally, Hong's infrastructure allowed the fix to apply instantly. So she starts watering the soil of Shin's banana plantation. Suddenly, two boys from school passing by starts noticing some noise coming from the playground, but the deep invasion of Hong is still ongoing. So the two Randys begin to investigate the surroundings, wondering if there's actually someone nearby. With the boys inching closer by the second, Hong and Shin decide to reconvene their invasion for the next day, as they don't want to get caught in plain sight. And so our boy heads home, somehow managing to not explode at all during the attacks, so he's happy although quite confused on what just happened. Upon arriving at home still flustered, he tries to smack himself awake, thinking that maybe this is all just a dream, but he finds himself still stuck in reality. With his mom still away at the World Sorcerers Forum, he goes to finish up his chores, only to find the altar at the shrine room glowing, with one of the 7 panels fully lit up. He then catches himself looking at a mirror, but he instantly recoils away after being shocked at the sight of a glowing handprint on his face. As such, he swiftly hurries to the nearby clinic, but he discovers that no one else can see the handprint except himself. Shin then gets frustrated as he goes around attempting to show off the glowing handprint on his face, but no one can see it, causing them to think he might be going crazy. With no one able to understand what's exactly wrong with him, he starts thinking that maybe it is him, maybe he is going crazy. With it finally dawning on Shin that he could be the problem, he allows himself to get admitted in just so they could do a routine checkup on him. And so he lays on his bed awaiting to do some tests so they can get to the bottom of his problem. But for now, they assume it's related to stress due to his university entrance exam coming up soon. Luckily for Shin, his stay and all the tests will be free of charge, as the doc knows his mom, who apparently has helped multiple people within the community, so she's well known. With him resting, Shin feels uneasy at the thought of not being able to do his duty, so he decides to look for a nearby nurse so he can ask if he can sort things out first. And so he whips open the curtain only to find the one on duty to be his type in terms of body preferences. With him staring at some rice cakes for a very long time, she eventually turns, but Shin is able to avoid getting caught since he plays a lot of stalker games. But just as he thought he was safe, a woman approaches from beyond the curtain, looking exactly like the girl he was staring at. So before she can open up the curtain, he starts making up excuses that he wasn't able to see anything, since he's blind like a bat without glasses. With Shin now frantically attempting to salvage the situation, he keeps trying to make an excuse to no avail. However, it turns out to actually be his mom behind the curtain, so he's able to stop sweating as if he's trying to clutch the final overtime round in a ranked game. She then starts asking what the heck happened to cause him being admitted in by the doc, so he tries to explain the sticky situation he's in. He then attempts to explain that he found the altar randomly glowing, and when he looked in the mirror, there was a handprint glowing on his face too. Upon hearing what happened, the mom looks like as if she saw a ghost, so she sits down wanting to know more about the handprint on his face. With things starting to add up, she starts asking if the girl happens to be the eldest daughter of the Jew family, to which Shin surprisingly confirms her suspicions. The mom then falls to her knees, clutching her hands together as if she's praying, thankful to the heavens that they have finally answered her prayers. She then reveals the secret that Shin was destined for greatness ever since he was born, but his magical energy was too powerful to contain inside a child boy. Eventually, she had come to paths that she needed to share his powers with others for the time being, to prevent him from perishing as his body was beginning to succumb to the void. So instead, she split up his energy between 7 other children fated to disappear from the world, allowing them to live on and prosper using his energy. And ever since then, she's been praying to the gods to allow him to regain the destiny that he was foretold, but Shin initially refuses to believe his mom. Eventually, he gives in to the possibility that it's all true, since it explains the reason why he can see a handprint from Hong exuding from his face. She then continues on, coming to terms with the fact that it might now be time for Hong to return his powers, which is why their touch now elicits an electric reaction. With the onset of the new information, Shin gets a little bit scared for Hong since he's a nice guy, not wanting to accidentally destroy her life for reclaiming his lost energy. Nevertheless, the mom also explains that once his energy finally recognizes its master, he'll be desperately attracted to him like a super magnet, wanting to return home instead of being trapped somewhere else. This explains why Hong has now decided to act up, as his energy is turning her into the biggest sussy baka ever. So basically, it sounds to me like his mom did him a favor, setting him up in the future with 7 girls all wanting every piece of our boy. Now she's a true wingman, and she was able to predict that her soy boy son would have trouble with girls. So she gave him 7 bombshells to choose from in the future. Anyways, even after Hong's catacombs got invaded by Shin, she's still unable to control her inner cravings, as she continually becomes super thirsty for Shin water. At the same time, Shin's mom starts thinking of ways to allow his lost energy to transfer back to him. So she asks if she's done anything out of the ordinary lately, but of course he denies it all. He then proceeds to kick his mom out of the room, too embarrassed to explain that for the first time ever, his banana tree plantation received its very first visitor. As she heads back home, she starts thinking of ways to help her son out in arranging his destiny. However, she doesn't remember all 7 kids that harnessed his powers, but all she can remember is the fact that they were all indeed girls. And so she decides to become the local detective, wanting to do the best for her son. But she doesn't realize one of them literally just passed by her. Meanwhile, inside Shin's room, he starts piecing things together, trying to comprehend the entire information bomb that was just dropped on him. As he tries to make sense of everything, a wild Hong appears looking absolutely frustrated, shouting at Shin, wondering why he hasn't returned any of her calls. She then sits down while our boy is busy thinking if this is the crazy girlfriend he reads about on anime, since how could Hong even find out where he is? As Hong sits down, unable to truly express why she's here to visit him, our boy continues his non-soy boy rampage, telling Hong that yesterday was the last time he will ever let her bully him around. And so he gets up, commanding the fiery redhead to go find someone else to take advantage of, since he isn't going to buy any more wrappers for anyone else. Hong then looks on shocked, unable to believe that Shin actually walked out on her, but the entire time she's only been trying to hint she wants an appointment for an attack into the catacombs. However, Shin finally became a man after telling Hong that she can't bully him anymore, so he left to the nearest bathroom. He is then shocked that he was finally able to tell her off, since our soy boy has been tormented by her for over 10 years. So now he's free from his bully, but I think he forgot he has to unlock his energy lost within her. As he ponders on what to do next, the door suddenly burst open, with Hong leading the charge into the bathroom, sending Shin flying off. After she shouts his name, our boy instinctively makes excuses and blames it on his meds, so in an instant he returned to his soy boy form. But the turntables turn, and she quickly runs over to him to apologize, so she mutters the words "I'm sorry" for the first time ever. As such, our boy is super confused, as he's still too dumb to put 2 and 2 together, after forgetting he smashed her rice cakes the day before. With Shin still stuck on the floor, she ends up cosplaying the Canadian Royal Mounted Police and proceeds to use her knowledge of science to create friction. After creating some friction, she hops off and gets herself stuck in a very sussy position, explaining that ever since yesterday, she has felt some super weird energy stuck within her. Upon hearing Hong stumble on her words trying to explain what she's feeling, it finally dawned on our boy that it's actually his powers and energy taking over her, making her such a mess. So now we finally remember that Hong is one of the girls he needs to retrieve his lost energy from, or else she will continue being a big sussy baka. And so, like a true Sigma male, he orders her to slap him in the face, so now she thinks he's the sussy baka. After initially hesitating due to not wanting to inflict any damage on his face, she channels her inner championship slapping tournament vibes and goes for it. And as she sends her hand flying straight into him, she anxiously tells him to not get mad, as he's the one that told her to do it. After slapping the heck out of him, nothing happens, and Shin even got to feel the wrath of her attack, so he tells her to try the other side. This time, she decides to channel her inner Jackie Chan, causing her hand to glow as she aims for the other side. With her hand glowing and now a handprint glowing on his face as well, surely this must be the way for her to relieve whatever energy is stuck within her. However, she fooled us all like it's an April Fool's joke, since she went to grab his banana tree plantation instead of making contact with his face. So now she's taken the matter into her own hands again, and due to her being thirsty, she grabbed the Slurpee flavor Shin and went to town. She then starts explaining herself, saying that it was as if her body moved on her own, so she starts blaming his face instead, as she continues to be the royal Slurpee expert. With Shin not knowing what to do, he just sits there and lets the entire event unfold, watching Hong try her hardest to spill his honey tea. The event then escalates as Hong proceeds to let the battering ram enter her city catacombs, but she knows there's no protective wrapper on the siege equipment today. Regardless, she proceeds to continue on with her attack, as she's the one that forces in the siege equipment inside her city walls. Eventually, Shin decides that it's his turn to command the attack deep inside the city of Hong, as she can't let her do everything herself. Meanwhile, another patient quickly dashes to the bathroom, since he's an old man with a small bladder. However, he asks for help from a nearby nurse as he can't believe the bathroom door is unlocked, and that should not be the norm. Inside the door, Hong rides on into the mountain climax, unable to believe she's actually going through with everything, but like my Valorant teammates, all they shout is go and overheat. Back outside the door, the woman tells the old man that she's unable to find the keys, so she asks if she can use the one downstairs instead. However, the man tells her they need to open this one, since there could be someone inside that needs urgent help and they can't unlock the door. The woman then makes a face, realizing that the old bro has a point, so she quickly starts knocking on the door, asking if anyone is stuck inside. Truth be told, there is indeed someone stuck inside, but it's Hong, who just got startled alongside Shin, since these two are absolute menaces. Upon hearing the commotion outside, Hong freezes like it's the mannequin challenge all over again, since she can't have what happened the night before at the playground. However, Shin transformed into the Street Fighter Shin, so he springs into action, making Hong feel better as she thought everything would now be over. Now, like a true Chad, he tells her that he will help get both of them to the finish line, as the race isn't over, so they can't leave the arena yet. So now she gets even more flustered, as she never expected the soy boy to be turned super masculine for once, so her fountain starts leaking abruptly. Outside the door, the woman is called a locksmith, while the old man was able to find a random engineer, so the door will soon break open. However, the two lovebirds have no care in the world as they continue chugging on, but let's just say Hong's door has been broken long ago. Eventually, Shin can't handle operating his machine, so he makes an oofsy face, realizing his machine is about to spill all over, and that would be a disaster without proper protection. It would be exactly like an oil spill in the ocean, so Hong orders him to control his machine or else she will destroy his very essence in life. With not much time to react, he has mere seconds to figure out where to let the machine spill all over, so he pushes Hong off onto the floor. He then decides that he likes girls with no makeup, so he targets the face to make sure Hong is all natural. He then quickly asks Siri to Google an excuse to make, but it fails since he forgot his phone, so he just says sorry to a disheveled Hong. Luckily, she only calls him a moron since she's now fully engulfed in the power and extracts of his banana plantation, so she probably smells. She then passes out from the intense event, but before she closes her eyes, she commands him to make sure they get out of there in one piece. Fast forward to the next day, every girl is busy pulling a Gossip Girl episode as it's now the talk of the town about a patient going crazy inside a bathroom. It's then revealed that two lovebirds' majestic plan was to just hightail out of the room, causing everyone to get stricken with surprise. It then turns out that everyone knows Shin was involved, but the girl somehow got away due to her putting on a hood and covering her face like a thief. Nonetheless, the doc of the entire ward walks in, not knowing what has occurred, since her time is always spent being a busybody. To be honest though, big props to our boy as he was able to assert his dominance for the first time ever. Anyways, back to the action as all the other patients now think Shin is a big hot shot as they can't believe he pulled off something so impressive. But I retract my compliment as it turns out he's now hiding underneath his covers, busy replaying what just happened last night over and over. We then discover that it was actually Hong's plan to disappear like a ninja as she wanted Shin to take all the blame, but her mission was a success. Now with the entire place calling him a god, he attempts to escape all the eyes on him, so he runs to hide outside. However, the door suddenly swings wide open with a woman right behind, causing Shin to stop right in his tracks. It turns out to be a doc earlier, and since she was in a hurry, she ends up crashing straight into Shin as she did not expect someone to be up and about. Luckily, Shin is able to soften the blow to the ground due to his dump truck, but the girl is instantly worried, asking our boy if he's okay, but we know Shin is already falling in love. But then, unknowingly, his hand starts glowing after the impact with her, so now another challenger has entered the fray. Nevertheless, with a frantic pink-haired girl asking if our boy is alright, he confirms to her that he's totally fine. But then the pain finally hit him. Even I would never hope for my biggest enemies to feel the pain that Shin is going to go through right now, as we discover he actually got kneed at the wrong place. Finally, his delayed scream erupts as the adrenaline fighting off the pain from the original impact subsides. But since you can't really do much, the girl moves on to check on her other patients, leaving our boy behind in scathing pain. After a few more moments, Shin finds himself lucky, as he's able to walk in one piece back into his room. With him walking back in, all he could think of is how he's still sore in the wrong spot, so he hopes in the future that he will still be able to have kids after the ordeal. He then stops for a moment to stare at Pinky, totally surprised that she's the one in charge as she totally looks like a girl next door. Shin also can't help himself but watch from behind as he's too amazed with what he sees, but then they suddenly call him over to help with a procedure. However, the old man starts flailing his arms and legs as he doesn't want the legendary machine to get close to him, but he has no other choice. and so he starts helping out as they needed to pin the man down, due to him being scared of needles just like me. Then out of nowhere, he starts feeling some bags of clouds aloft his head as Pinky pushes herself closer to get a better hold of the procedure. Afterwards, they successfully inject the old man, so he heads back to sleep while Pinky is super thankful to Shin. So she asks if she can get him tea for being so helpful. With him luckily finding number 2 by accident, he runs to hide it from her and proceeds to call his wizards from Waverly Place mother to alert her of the sudden discovery. Upon further investigation, he discovers her name to be Yam Jiwon, and apparently his mom knows her dad as she's the only daughter of the man that owns the only hardware store in town. Hopefully the dad isn't a multi-talented man, as the only famous hardware people these moms know is Johnny from the Hub. Regardless, his mom confirms that she did indeed give away the smallest portion of his energy to her when she was young to save her from embarrassment, so it's time for him to reclaim his destiny. However, as he watches from afar, he realizes Pinky loves to be super clumsy, especially since she keeps ending up in super compromising positions. With Shin almost being swayed by her poses, he ends up snapping back to reality when his hand glows again, only to realize he needs to figure out the original source of his glowing mark. So now he needs to figure out what part fits perfectly with his glowing mark on his hand, as there should be a matching side from Jiwon, causing our boy to start daydreaming once again. Now, since our boy is still a soy boy without his powers, he's quick to use his brain to go overdrive in his sussy backup fantasies. Unfortunately, that isn't the real world, so he swiftly attempts to raise his IQ levels over level 9,000, allowing him to realize that the posterior maximus must be the key to everything. And so he plans his method of attack carefully in his big brain, as he thinks he can just walk up to her and conquer like he has the power to stop time. But then he realizes he's just a weak sussy baka and not capable of doing anything bad, as he's actually a really good boy, so he sits there frustrated trying to figure out alternative paths. After a few more moments of deliberate thinking, Shin comes up with his final approach and decides to land on airway twin dragons instead of the posterior maximus. But of course, Shin is all talk and no game, which is a good thing, as he isn't that down bad compared to some people I've seen on the internet. With both his hands now glowing, he realizes he's in deep trouble, as there's no way he can do anything to figure out a solution, as he can't just randomly go up to her and activate the power of touch. Honestly though, why don't Shin just ask for an examination, if you guys know what I mean? Wink wink. Anyways, Jiwon is a workaholic, so she literally spends all her time at work, and now she has no extra clothes to change into after pulling off another 24-hour shift. Unluckily for her, Jiwon's only downtime for the next 16 hours gets interrupted, as it's already time for the next patient to walk in. And lo and behold, the next patient is the heart-throb sensation Shin, but it looks like he has a massive headache once sitting down. With Jiwon unable to figure out what's actually wrong with Shin, as all his results come back perfectly fine, she feels uneasy, as this is the first case she has not instantly figured out what the culprit could be. Upon realizing that Shin now also has a headache, she quickly gets up super worried about him, as it could be a case of simp overload. Suddenly, Jiwon decides to take the detour down Sussy Street, as she straight up asks if Shin has any problems erecting his banana tree plantation. Taken by surprise, our boy instantly gets flustered and instinctively reacts by covering up his battering ram. Jiwon then reveals to him that if he had trouble setting off a rocket ship, then his headache is related to the meds they recently given him, but he's totally fine in that department. As such, it turns out that my earlier request is about to come true without our boy even asking for it. Almost as if he's lucky enough to win the lottery with how things are going. With Jiwon getting ready to do another examination to make sure things are perfectly fine, Shin gets another good look at the grand prize, so he starts thinking to himself that the girl next door is actually pretty cute. Of course, Shin is unable to stare away from Jiwon's bakery, as her dad is apparently a baker, because Jiwon got that nice set of buns. It's so nice that he almost fell over from being hypnotized by the glazed buns. Luckily, Jiwon saves the day with her finally ready to continue the test. But the turntables turn as she instantly pulls off his leg armor, exposing the battering ram hidden behind, so even I got startled with what she just did. It then turns out that Jiwon is actually the Sigma male in this supposed relationship, as the exam is to make sure he's able to get his volcano up and running to become Mount Vesuvius. I never knew there was such a thing as a banana tree plantation examination, but in this anime world, Doc Pinky is about to throw Shin's world upside down. As such, she orders him to relax, as she needs to make sure everything is fine and dandy, or else there's going to be a huge problem with the side effects of the meds. Shortly after, she begins by applying some kind of weird gel to the Minecraft nether, and then she whipped out some kind of advanced contraption that automatically shakes. Clearly, the machine is not meant for shaking milkshakes, rather it's meant to be intense enough to allow the banana tree to mature to its full potential without her having to do it herself manually. With Juwon feeling a little bit awkward due to the two being the same age, she decides to look away while the machine does its thing, but Shin is trying to hold on to his dear life, not wanting to erupt. After checking the screen to her left, she realizes that there's actually nothing wrong so far, so she starts thinking something worse could be happening to our boy. As such, she asks Shin if he can even feel her hands right now on the battering ram, but he's dumbfounded by the question, as what kind of man would not feel the grip of a gorilla? As he struggles, a light bulb appears on top of his head as he realizes he could actually take advantage of the situation. And so he does, telling Juwon that he actually can't feel anything, just like my thighs when I sit on the toilet for far too long. Now super worried that Shin can't feel anything, she tries even harder to find spots that will allow him to feel her full force, so she starts searching deep down in the dark. And by dark, I mean the battering ram, as Shin the genius is trying his hardest to endure the constant attacks from Juwon. Suddenly, Juwon gets startled by Shin as he starts erupting like a volcano with lava spurting everywhere with no lid on top. It was at this very moment he realized he screwed up, as this is now part of his most embarrassing timeline, but at least he could say it was worth it all. Shin basically risked his jingle just so he could feel the dingle, and it wasn't even Christmas yet. Anyways, moments later, Juwon leaves the room as she's super satisfied that nothing is actually wrong with Shin, so she leaves him behind ready to take care of the next person in line. After experiencing the explosion, Shin gets up, and through the help of the post-banana tree sage-like clarity, he realizes that with Hong he knew instantly what part he had to match since it glowed on her as well. So now it finally dawned on our sussy backup what he needs to do to complete his mission, and one of the requirements is him to stop getting distracted. Elsewhere, Juwon is busy trying to find more spare clothes in her office, but her attempts are futile as she's totally out. But the crazy thing is that she didn't care she had expired milk splatter on her face. Nevertheless, as she swaps into her night shift clothes, we finally discover that the mysterious glowing spot is actually located on her double twin dragons. However, as she's busy swapping armors for the upcoming shift, she gets ganked by a mysterious man in her office calling her name. The mysterious man is revealed to be none other than Soy Boy Master 9000 Shin, as he's busy telling her that his machine has stopped working and gone limp like some sami noodles. He then continues on by gaslighting her, telling her that it's actually her fault, so she needs to take responsibility to make sure his machine is up and running again. As such, she agrees with his controversial take with no hesitation at all, so she asks if there's anything she can do to help. Then, out of nowhere, Shin actually had the gall to whip out the battering ram and tells Juwon that it's time for the siege of her walls. Now, instead of heading straight towards her inner walls, he actually decides to not penetrate the walls with his battering ram, as he does not want to be cancelled like Balenciaga. In the end, Juwon actually goes through the entire siege as planned, but Shin the transformed demon erupted the volcano once again. With lava now spilling on top of her shoes, Juwon turns around and asks if everything now feels alright, wondering if that took care of everything our boy needed. However, it turns out that Shin is not finished yet, as he asks her it's okay for him to have one final action, as he still needs to envelope the legendary twin dragons. Upon Shin reaching out to complete his final task, Juwon suddenly finds herself laying at home, wondering to herself if everything was actually just a dream. With her still sweating from the crazy encounter, she quickly gets up from bed and logs on YouTube to make sure Dream from Minecraft was still around. Meanwhile, Shin is busy walking around the clinic feeling more stressed out, as he figured out the glowing matching area is a forbidden place he would never force his way into. Shin needs to figure out how to release the energy from them ASAP, as he does not want to continue living life like Sneeko the soy boy. Meanwhile, Juwon wonders the walls flustered, as she tries her best to figure out who the heck was the mysterious man in her dream that just barged in and activated his rockets full throttle to send her flying into space. However, due to the intensity of the dream, the only thing she can remember is his devious smile in the same uniform that everyone wears at her work. Suddenly, our boy is able to intercept the humble bearer of the pyramids of Giza, asking Juwon if she's on the way to work. Without answering his question, she instantly places her hand on his face in an attempt to see if he could be the culprit from within her dreams. She then sighs and begins to shake her head, as she must be mistaken, although his smile and uniform are an exact match with the man from her dream, but Shin apparently looks too much like a loser to be one. With Juwon acting all out of character, her weird reactions leave our boy hanging, causing Shin to be furiously curious to what the heck she's doing, as she won't reveal the reasons behind her actions, so he accidentally squishes to check the basket down below. He then urges her to spill the tea, but as the two walk away, a person catches him sneaking a look from behind with his swish, alerting the passerby of his sussy actions. With him being caught in plain sight, the girl freezes and gets baffled that he had the gall to pull such a direct move on Juwon. As such, she takes it upon herself like a snitch to make sure justice is served, but the Justice League is a tier below the Avengers. She then reveals to Ju-won that she saw Shin staring endlessly at the bakery buns on display, looking as if he really wanted to grab them fresh off the oven. Furthermore, she continues on by whispering to her the fact that Shin is dubbed the crazy machine within the area as he got caught pulling a fast one with Hong in a restricted bathroom. So with the advent of all the new information about Shin, Ju-won gets shocked as she never expected him to be that type. It also then dawns on her that maybe her dream was actually just some kind of warning to alert her to avoid Shin at all costs, or else the prophecy of the suspect machine will come true with everything accumulating to her experiencing his oil spill. With Shin now painted in a different unflattering light by accident, Ju-won's work buddy tries her best to convince her to make sure Shin goes home early to avoid any mishaps. Her pleading is heard loud and clear as Anna completes her mission successfully, so Ju-won is all fired up and wanting to make sure he gets sent home today. Fast forward literally like 3 minutes later, Ju-won barges into his room and orders Shin to go home urgently, while also insulting him by calling him names. Shin then freezes and begins to sweat profusely due to her abrupt confrontation with him, as he begins to yell in his own headspace, claiming that everything is just a terrible misunderstanding as he ain't even a demon king. He then starts freaking out, so he starts channeling his inner Karen self and begins to yell that everything she's heard is false, and they can't even be possible, as our boy reveals how down bad he is as he claims he hasn't even spoken to 7 different girls in his entire life. Now that's something we keep to ourselves, buddy, so make sure to take note, guys, and don't reveal things like that out loud. Anyway, since Ju-won is ultimately a kind soul, she gives him another chance, but the catch is that she needs to record everything he does to make sure he isn't a supreme sussy baka. However, out of nowhere, the two get interrupted in their debacle as a man walks in backwards, shouting for everyone to get back whilst he holds on to someone in front of him. It's then revealed that the guy is actually mentally crazy as he screams he needs and wants a spaceship ASAP delivered to him so he can escape this lowly planet. Ju-won then attempts to quickly interfere, but the guy has no idea that there's 2 people behind him, so Shin is forced to stop her in her tracks to make sure the man doesn't get startled. As Shin stops her from attempting any foolish moves, they accidentally checkmate each other by accidentally falling underneath the bed. With the two being distracted by the crazy man in the room, Ju-won falls on top of Shin, causing his hands to move on his own. Now, the #1 rule in regards to ancient pyramids is to never disturb the peace and to leave it untouched. However, Shin has done the opposite today. So now he's the one that ultimately gets flustered, but he refuses to move over instantly, causing Ju-won to finally realize what the heck is happening. She then looks down in disbelief at Shin, but we can't really fault our boy as it's basically like clouds falling on top of him. Regardless, Ju-won decides to instinctively whip out her phone and record the disturbance and begins to yell at him, claiming that Shin was not able to help himself. So now bro is actually caught in 4K, but Shin is a savage because he still does not move an inch. Instead, he hangs on the twin pyramids like his life depends on it. Shin then perseveres and pushes through, telling himself that this is his only chance at reclaiming his destiny. So he decides to risk it all and hopes for the best, as he still has Roblox at home waiting for him if all else fails. However, the turntables turn as he quickly switches away from his plan and proceeds to ask Ju-won what the plan is to take down the crazy man. Ju-won then reveals that her plan is to actually just stick the defensive weapon she keeps with her at all times in his back, so that should quickly do the trick. As such, Shin puts on a brave act and tells her to get ready to zap the man when he successfully distracts him. Right before Shin initiates his plan of being the bait, Ju-won tells him that if this is his attempt to change the subject, then it won't work. But then Shin chads up and tells her she can call the po-po, or they can actually try to save the person right now, and after that, she can toss him out, but first they need to save her. He continues on his act of bravery by ordering her to make sure she doesn't miss her shot, as he still has a lot left to live for. Shortly after, Shin pops out from underneath the bed like a ninja, trying his best to calm down the man and to distract him. Now that our boy has his attention, his plan is to slowly back away and move into a corner opposite of where Ju-won will pop out to give her the best chance at succeeding. But then Ju-won ruins the entire plan by popping out right after him, and she ends up yelling at the man to stop wanting to make a deal with him. We then discover that the true brave one is Ju-won, and she offers to swap place with Terry and to take her instead, claiming that she's more valuable because she's the head honcho of the area. However, she falls frantically to the ground as she realizes that her taser is missing from her pocket, so it's totally obvious that she put all her knowledge points in gaining her degree. Anyways, the man decides he's had enough with all the shenanigans going on, so he starts yelling and ends up charging straight towards Ju-won. Unfortunately, her reaction time is slower than an iron player, so she just watches and stands there doing nothing, but our hero yells at her to move. With her still frozen looking like she has to keep in a major fart, Shin musters up some of his powers and instantly dodge rolls towards Ju-won in an attempt to save her. Now our boy must be super lucky as Ju-won accidentally turns when he dodge rolls into her, causing Shin's hand to land on the twin pyramids of Giza, causing a blinding light to erupt inside the room. It was at this moment he actually risked it all and it worked, as he ends up rolling a 99 out of 100 on his lucky scale. Now if you guys actually think about it, Shin's mom is actually the best wingman of all time, as she knew one day her own son will come to reclaim every single ounce of his lost energy. So now Shin has made contact with the powers coming from Hong and Ju-won, causing 2 full panels to bright up at his Hong shrine. Meanwhile, back in the action, Shin actually ends up taking a direct blow from the crazy man, causing him to actually get injured. However, the man stops attacking and begins staring into the sky, busy wondering what the heck he's feeling after the bright flash of energy. He then continues on by talking about how he feels like he has ascended and gone beyond the depths of the solar system, so it's basically like he's stunned and concussed. With the man stuck in a dreamlike state, Ju-won swiftly gets up to zap the hell out of the man, as it's time for revenge and to end everything once and for all. Ju-won then successfully brings down the man as he instantly drops to the floor like some kind of fruit fly. Eventually, she realizes that Shin is actually losing some blood due to the man's attack right before he made contact with her powers, so she instantly goes to him to see if he's okay. She then orders him to show her his arm, as she needs to make sure the man did not accidentally destroy any major parts. Upon further inspection, she realizes it wasn't just a small boo-boo, so she starts ushering him into her office as she needs to begin helping him heal. As she helps clean up his injury, he ends up realizing that Ju-won is being sussy with his arm and is more hands-on than usual. It then turns out that Ju-won is surprised at herself, as it seems like her body is involuntarily moving by itself, as if it has its own separate mind. She then starts shaking as she attempts to hurry up and finish disinfecting him, as she discovers some kind of heat wave pulsing through her veins. And so she accidentally squeezes too hard when applying a bandage, causing Shin to scream like a little girl, so he asks her if she could slow down a bit. But she apologizes and continues on moving like the Flash, telling him that she can't really stop as she's now in a bit of a rush due to what she's now experiencing. In the end, she succumbs to the heat pulsing through her, so she stops in her tracks and proceeds to close the curtains around them. As she forcefully closes the curtain, Shin gets scared with the sudden change of her demeanor, so he starts apologizing for whining like a big old baby. Suddenly, the Sussy Nation appeared and started attacking straight through Ju-won. In the end, the super nice and caring Ju-won has transformed into a demon that cannot be reckoned with, as she starts displaying the power coursing through her veins. In just mere seconds, Shin is forced to try his best to make sure his brand new machine will not be spilling in less than 1 minute due to Ju-won's unrelenting attacks. In the end, she decides to remove her armor so they could proceed with Shin's siege straight into the cave of Ju-won, as our boy has now unlocked a new achievement. With the crazy turn of events featuring the Sussy Nation, our boy can't believe what's happening as he's just minding his own business, while Ju-won is busy showing him some super intense yoga classes using his own siege battering ram. Eventually, Shin snaps back from his demon horn mode and back into using his brain mode, as he sadly remembered that he was only here to take back his powers, not here to enjoy himself and try his hardest to make sure his siege weapon doesn't spill fresh oil all over. As such, Shin activates his signature move by using his mystical touch, allowing him to grab onto anything he wants, including the pyramids of Giza right in front of him, and as soon as contact is made, a bright flash begins to illuminate the room. Shortly after the light explosion, Shin finds himself in deep trouble, as he didn't expect the catacombs of Ju-won to suddenly get more narrow and tighter in an instant, so now he's fighting for his life to make sure his secret weapon does not explode. Regardless, Ju-won goes into overdrive and activates her interplay off LeBron James to send the game into overtime, as she begins to take over the entire court, while our boy is busy trying to make sure he can breathe and survive on defense. Unfortunately, he gets blocked by Anthony Davis, so his weapon explodes before Ju-won wants him to, causing her to order him to stay down, as he broke rule number 1 of rice cake smashing without having a sheet to cover the cake. But then it turns out that Ju-won has bribed the referee, so she starts up game number 2 of the playoffs by forcing him to start again, as she expertly reactivates his basketballs. Now that Shin has already used his secret diamond sword once, he's left shocked as he can't believe Ju-won was secretly hiding her multiple awakened mythical fruits from Roblox. It then turns out that the reason why she's such an expert, even though this is her first time rice cake destroying, is due to the fact the nurse from earlier taught her how to use her dough fruit to conquer any dragon fruit or venom fruit users. Luckily for Ju-won, she's super successful in her attack, as not just any person could pull off what she's doing right now, as they need to be properly equipped with natural gifts or else they'll fall too short to succeed. Regardless, we take a quick break from the Sussy Nation attacking, as Ju-won stops for a moment to let him know that he's the only one and first ever to see this very wholesome side of her. Of course, Shin responds by saying he's the luckiest man alive, as Juwon is busy still trying to squeeze out all the banana milk from his banana tree plantation due to her wanting round 2 of the playoffs. Eventually, our boy succumbs to the powers of Juwon once again, so she instantly gets sad upon hearing from Shin that his machine is having trouble keeping all the oil within, so it might blow up like a volcano very soon. However, he stops Juwon from continuing as he decides to be a gentleman this time, so he turns the sussy table by becoming the one on attack as he lets her play defense the rest of the way through. Now that Shin is the one taking over the court using his supreme knowledge and powers coursing through his veins, his defender begins to shake uncontrollably as if she's being hit by an earthquake with magnitude 69. Regardless, he decides to activate his finishing attack by using explosion milk jutsu. But he accidentally goes overboard, causing his target to pass out from the sheer force of a battering ram spilling within the catacombs. As such, he's forced to wait for Juwon to regain consciousness, which takes a while as all energy has been seeped out of her. After the entire ordeal and upon Juwon waking up, the two put back on their righteous armors, but our boy realizes that his hands both stopped glowing and lost its print mark. Confused as to what happened, he continues to stare at his hands in disbelief, waiting for the "it's just a prank bro" moment to occur, but it never did. However, as he tries his best to figure out what happened, he looks in the mirror flabbergasted as the mysterious glow on his face is still there, whilst Juwon is busy spying on him like pervy sage. As Juwon continues to sneakily spy on the boy she lost all control with during their duel, she starts wondering what the heck happened to her to cause her to be so attracted to him, since she finds him looking absolutely bang average like a vendor hot dog. Nonetheless, she realizes that after the rice cake destroying event with Shin, she feels a lot more relieved than usual, as if something has been lifted from her shoulders and soul. Anyways, shortly after, Shin comes to get Juwon to let her know that he's already all healed up and ready to leave, as they cleared him good to go after some nice stress relieving. As such, Pinky starts feeling flustered as she listens to Shin say his goodbyes, but her heart starts pounding, so she knows that destiny is trying to tell her to make a Stacy move. And so Juwon pulls the most Stacy move of all by asking if she could borrow his phone real quick, where she ends up putting her own number into his contact list like a true Sigma female. As she hands back the phone to him, she shyly looks to the side while all blushed up like a tomato, hinting to our boy he could contact her at any time as her parents are never home. Unfortunately for her, Shin returns back to his boneheaded normal self, so he starts to think that Juwon is feeling pity for him as no one ever visited him while he was out cold, not truly realizing she wants to be a rice cake call away. As such, she leaves the room full of joy and happiness due to her actually being able to hand out her number to Shin, but our boy feels super defeated in thinking that Juwon has labeled him as a super sussy loser. Nonetheless, she happily waves goodbye and reminds Shin that he's no longer a patient here, so feel free to contact her anytime as no one will be home. But our boy is too busy distracted by her beauty to remember anything she said. And so he leaves on his journey back home, still unable to figure out what happened even though he knew he needed to match his glowing prince with her. But our boy is dumber than Nendo from Seiki. Eventually, it dawns on our lower than average IQ main character that he has successfully completed his mission of attempting to regain his powers from Juwon, although he still has no idea how. Regardless, upon arriving back home, he gets greeted with a surprise sight of multiple people waiting in some kind of line in front of his house. So Shin speeds through the line into his house, where even more people are waiting in line for an unknown reason, so the people get angry at him for seemingly skipping the entire line, but he's able to calm them down after explaining he lives there. Shortly after, he runs and finds the best girl in the series so far, his mom, who warmly welcomes him while sitting in front of their shrine. At first, he quickly questions her if every single one is here to collect their loans, but his mom gets insulted at the thought, so she reveals they are all actually her customers wanting their fortune done. She then whips out her phone and showcases her on the front page of the news, so Best Mommy explains how ever since she attended the World Sorcerer Forum, good fortune has been bestowed upon her. With all the brand new and unlimited customers lining up for her, she starts dancing and begins to embrace Shin like a true bear mom, super excited that they are gaining money hand over fist like Bill Gates whenever a new Windows appears. Regardless, now that they are rich, Best Mommy hands over a brand new platinum credit card for Shin to use on his tuition or even Roblox and Valorant bundle skins. After handing him an unlimited source of money glitch, she tells Shin that she's going to head out to grab some milk from the groceries, but then as soon as she disappeared, he finds a secret note hiding behind the card. Upon further investigation, we discover that Best Mommy is literally the #1 girl of all time, as she wants her own son to find a girl at the nearby university that goes by the name of Yi. And so he follows his mom's best wishes in searching for this mysterious girl, as literally anyone can be named Yi, including my boy Ken Yi East. But this is a tall task ahead of him, as there's so many people still bustling around university even during nighttime, as the school is currently having a campus festival to celebrate studying. Luckily for our boy, he instantly runs into a bunch of girls cosplaying a bunny, Nezuko, and a cat, all trying to convince him to join their fashion design club. He then starts to panic and get flustered with so many people running around, as he always wanted to take the next step to join university, but he got bogged down trying to be a pro gamer, so now he's just a pro loser. However, fortune favors the simps, as his childhood crush shows up in very fitting attire, looking beautiful as always, but Lin startles our soon-to-be Chad again, as he has forgotten that this is the very school both him and Lin wanted to attend. She then explains the reason why she's in such a festive uniform, as her classmates wanted her to show off her beauty to highlight the fact that they are majoring in fashion design. But in reality, the real thing she's majoring in is simp capturing magic, as she effortlessly highlights the best aspects of her, causing our boy to start having a nosebleed just like in all anime. And within just a few minutes of entering the campus, Shin has already forgotten the reason why he's here in the first place, as the goddess of beauty has distracted him off the path of being not a sussy baka. Lin then takes our boy to his dream state, as she swiftly decides to take his arm so the two could spend some time together catching up. It then turns out that Lin is using our boy as a guinea pig to test if their brand new dessert waffles would be worth selling, but Shin doesn't know how to eat a waffle with ice cream. As such, she takes the fork away from him and proceeds to try and feed him, but our boy gets stun locked harder than a noob, spamming one ability over and over, unable to believe his luck. Unfortunately, Shin gets sent crashing back to reality after tasting Lin's ice cream waffles, as it turns out the food tastes so bad he might actually start projectile puking. But since he's an ultra simp for his childhood crush, he actually ends up finishing the entire thing, as Lin joyfully watches him eat it all, as he can't bring himself to be a real one and tell the truth. Now that Lin is super excited that our boy has liked the first dessert, Shin gets even more shocked upon learning that she has made even more types of desserts for him to try. Fast forward to Shin having to go to the bathroom after devouring everything Lin made for him. We discover that he doesn't regret anything at all, as it felt like it was a dream date with Lin. Nevertheless, his stomach disagrees with him and forces him to start evacuating everything he just ate, so upon opening a door, he ends up finding a girl sitting down on the ground. Now the weird thing is that the girl is totally covered with sticky goo that sussy bakas unleash at night, so Shin gets stunned but his powers begin to glow. The girl is a menace though, as she tells him to screw off even though it's the men's bathroom, but Shin runs away anyways as he can't believe what he just saw. Regardless, the mysterious girl doesn't even mind that someone ganked her in the bathroom of the opposite gender, so she decides to claim the place and proceeds to remove some vanilla milk stains on her face. After quickly cleaning up like she's Mr. Clean, we discover that she's actually the supreme sussy Becca, as she's already planning for another round of vanilla-flavored facials. Unfortunately for the startled Shin, the girl ends up ganking him back, as he didn't have the energy within him to get as far away as possible from the sussy Becca, so they cross paths once again. She then stares right into his soul and playfully orders Shin to not tell anyone what bro just saw, as it's now going to be their own little secret. Eventually, the girl disappears into the abyss as she hunts for another prey to extract some vanilla milkshakes, allowing Shin to finally use the bathroom, but it looks like he got a nosebleed. After realizing what's happening, bro freaks out as he can't fathom that the girl from earlier could be the cause. So he tries his best to get to the bottom of this. He's able to catch up to Miss Sussy Becca, so while stumbling upon his words, he strikes a deal with her as he wants to know her name in return for not being a snitch on school grounds. However, the girl starts laughing hysterically as she thought Shin was about to ask her to let his supreme hot dog inside her fresh buns in exchange for keeping everything a secret. Regardless, for Shin, now totally flustered for being called such an innocent dude, she finally ends up revealing the fact that her name is Reena. Upon learning her full name, Bro's mark fully activates on his nose as he's able to confirm Reena is one of her Powerpuff Girls he needs his energy back from. Shortly after revealing her name, Reena closes the physical distance between the two, causing my sussy senses to tingle off the charts, as she looks like she's about to show Shin who's boss. So like a true menace, she pushes our boy against the wall to activate her sussy vampire skills in public, allowing her to figure out if he's as prime as a 5-Wagyu steak. She successfully causes Shin to almost rip his pants due to his banana tree plantation growing. So she pulls away at the perfect moment and tells him that it's going to be his lucky day tomorrow. After informing Shin to pick her up at the campus tomorrow in the afternoon, she quickly leaves him behind as she moves on to another dude just 5 meters away, as Reena is more passed around than a brand new Mr. Beast video. She's basically the female equivalent of a Chad, so right before she disappears with another dude, she yells back at Shin to make sure he's not either late or early tomorrow. Now me personally, I would never be as down bad as Shin, since now the real question is, how is he going to unlock his powers using his nose? Anyways, as the initial shock wears off from encountering a female Chad, Shin realizes she never specified what part of campus, so he goes frantically looking for Reena. It's too late though, as he can't find the sussy master in the sea of all the people. But it's a small world, so he ends up running into Lin again, who's very happy to see him. Luckily for him though, he finds a couple wearing the same shirt as Reena from earlier, so Lin tells him that the department uniform Reena was wearing is actually from the computer science nerds department. Fast forward to midnight in a random motel, we find Reena is currently experiencing some rice cake smashing from the blonde guy earlier. However, as he's plowing the dough like a true pizza master, Reena is laying there staring at her phone the entire time, scrolling Reddit like a true savage. Regardless, the guy is having a fantastic time right now, but Reena is feeling the opposite, as she thought this dude could finally be the guy that can reincarnate her into the world of bliss. Regardless, just a few seconds later, Reena has had enough of normie rice cake smashing, so she gets up and leaves while hoping that tomorrow's appointment with Shin will work out better, as she's been hunting for the one all her life. Now let's time skip again to the next day, where we find Shin looking like a lost puppy as he's waiting to unleash the dog in him, as today is going to be a lucky day. However, bro showed up literally an hour and 30 minutes early, as he can't help himself but get excited at the thought of winning the sussy lottery today. Nevertheless, Shin starts asking random people if they saw a cute girl in the engineering department, but we all know that's fake, so all the nerds start looking at him like he's crazy. Eventually, one of the guys burst out laughing after figuring out that the so-called cute girl that Shin is searching for is actually Reena. Now speak of the devil. While the guys are still busy wheezing, Reena comes out of the blue, but she looks entirely different compared to the night before. Nonetheless, Shin's here to gain some devil fruit action, so he goes up to her only for Reena to get scared, busy wondering who this weirdo is, as she has no idea who the heck he is. To make matters worse for our boy, Reena looks even more weirded out after calling out her name, so something weird is going on here, as she's actually Reena. Suddenly, as Shin is trying to figure out what the heck is going on, the blonde guy from yesterday comes out of nowhere and starts yelling at Reena as he's butthurt from last night. He proceeds to aggressively approach her, but Reena freaks out and almost cries instead of standing her ground like a Chad last night, so her personality is indeed the opposite now. With Reena trembling her boots off, she whips out her phone in self-defense and claims that she's about to call a detective if the guy doesn't back off. Regardless, Shin finally decides to step in, as it looks like Rin is the lost puppy now, but the blonde guy is still fast and furious, so he starts taking out the anger on Shin instead. Unfortunately for our boy though, the first thing out of his mouth is him calling the other guy's banana sword small, so he ends up taking one straight to the face in less than a second. After getting knocked out, it's revealed that bro is out cold from taking a single hit, so Reena was forced to bring him home to where she lives. So now this bipolar Reena is stuck in a pickle, as she's super innocent now, and apparently she's never taken a boy home before, so she has no idea what to do next. Nevertheless, innocent Reena looks at the clock and mumbles to herself that time is running out, so she hurriedly wakes up Shin to explain to him what is going on. Of course, Shin is super disappointed he didn't get to Malphite ult straight into Persona. Instead, Reena started asking him questions about how they met and why exactly he was looking for her. Eventually, Reena recoils back like a 50 cal in absolute disgust after hearing that she was found covered in some random guy's Dairy Queen blizzard inside the school bathroom, unable to believe what happened. And so she quickly writes down everything she learned on a piece of paper, while thanking Shin for trying to help her out, so she promises to return the favor one day. However, after finishing writing things down in her note, the turntables turn as she reveals there's actually two Reenas, so she asks Shin to show the next Reena the note once the second one appears. Seconds later, time hits 6 o'clock on the dot, causing the innocent Reena to start trembling, as this sussy anime is starting to turn into a thriller, as we don't know what's next. Nonetheless, Reena passes out in Shin's arms after a tremendous headache hits her, but things get even more confusing as the entire room lights up as if a bunch of police cars are about to show up. With Reena now transformed into her second form, Shin tries to run away, as he didn't want to check this off his bingo book at all this year, not wanting to find out if she's some kind of alien. Unfortunately for him, it's too late to escape, as dark Reena calls him a cutie pie, busy wondering how Shin already found out where she lives. With Shin now scared of Reena due to her total 180 transformation of her entire personality and demeanor, Reena stares at him and asks if he saw the entire transformation unfold. Without skipping a beat, Reena continues to unfold everything else on her and says that it'd be nice if the first man that can make her hit the climax of the mountain is the same one that saw her transform like Optimus Prime. Regardless, Shin is left speechless, with Rin using invisibility potions on her clothes, so she asks if he's down for rice cake smashing or else she's out of here. As such, Shin quickly grabs her and runs like his life depends on it, as he's still a sussy Becca, not wanting to miss a golden rice cake opportunity. He's then able to plop her down on the nearby bed in mere seconds, surprising both himself and Reena as he's never been this down bad before due to his horse raging to come out of his gates. Nevertheless, Reena smiles and tells Shin that he doesn't need to do any prep as she's always ready for a jumbo corn dog to enter at any time, so she urges him to hurry up and double satchel in. With Shin now determined to do some rice cake smashing and to also retrieve his powers, he realizes there's only one spot that his nose mark can fit within Reena. However, after shoving his nose straight down Reena's waterways, he smells something fishy for sure, but he gets confused and concerned as he sees no sparks that would allow his powers to activate.